yesterday.
I accidentally am live streaming. So this means somebody could join us on YouTube. Well,
Hi, if
yep.
you're joining
Hi,
us.
if anyone watches
Mhm.
this on YouTube. That was an accident, but cool. Let's see what happens. We're going to talk about messy stuff. We're doing our new trial formula
Mm-hmm.
or format where we each share a little messy something and then talk about it. So do you have something in mind?
Do you?
Yeah, but I can always wait.
No, go for it. I'm
Okay.
excited to hear yours. I'm
Mine's extremely
interested. I'm curious.
timely because it is something I'm going to be doing tonight. There is a board meeting for my kids' school district tonight, and a group of parents are going to talk about inequity in the school district, specifically the north part of our school district. Which, if you know anything about St. Louis, North County has become a predominantly Black part of St. Louis. Um, and a predominantly lower income part of St. Louis. So
Hmm.
it's predominantly Black. It's also a lot of like blue collar white folks, blue collar Black folks. It's a more blue collar, lower income, and not very racially diverse part of St. Louis. So
Okay.
there's like the east part of St. Louis, which is similar, and now more and more like it's kind of moving north, right? As white flight continues in St. Louis, and white people just keep moving more and more west and south. Okay, so that's just sort of the demographics of St. Louis so people know. We live in the north part of our school district, which is not, I don't know that we're technically North County St. Louis, but we are in the more northern eastern area of our school district. Our school district is largely affluent and white.
Mm-hmm.
The part of the school district that we are in is the least affluent and the least white. Right now, as I've talked about before in our school district, my son's school is one of the most diverse schools in the city and state. It is what I love about the school. His school district, or his school in particular, is about 44 ish. So somewhere between 40 and 45% white, 30-ish percent Black, and then the remaining 30% is made up of primarily South Asian, and then Hispanic, and there's some other demographics there. But it's
Mm-hmm.
largely Black and white. But the numbers are so vastly different than most of St. Louis, where most schools here are 80 to 90% white or 80, 90% Black, right? Not a lot of diversity. We have great diversity. Our school does, the middle school it feeds into does, the high school it feeds into does, because there's about 3 or 4 elementary schools in our area that are
Yeah.
all fairly equally in the same diversity makeup, some a little less, but for the most part, they're all about the same, and they all feed into the same middle school, and then that feeds into the high school. So his high school, the demographics are about the same. That's very different than almost every other school ladder in
Yeah.
our district, where it's far more white. And then I mean, not that our area isn't affluent, but we are not as affluent as the rest of the school district. Okay, all of that is to set up that our school in particular, because of where we are located, there are several hotels that have converted into short term stays.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is a fairly recent phenomenon in the last 5-ish years, really COVID and maybe a little before, right? That sort of changed a lot of needs around here. And as we know, housing prices are astronomical. That has happened in our area as well. It's very difficult for people to find places to live, all of
Yeah.
the economic realities of life since COVID and beyond. So we have all of these like short term housing areas from like hotels that are now serving as short term housing. That means that we have a very sort of transient population
Mm-hmm.
in our school in particular, because this area was zoned into our school 8 years ago when our school was much smaller, because this area had gotten older and other areas had more young people. And so now our area has turned over. There's lots of young families. So there's influx of people coming into our school just from the permanent housing around here. And then there are a lot of folks who are, because our school district is a desirable school district, and because it is more diverse and better funded than some of the other districts not far from here in technical North County, there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of folks who are trying to find ways to access these school systems, right? Rightfully so, because by the way, all schools, all children should have access to equally quality public
Yeah.
health, public
Yeah.
education. But that is not the reality of what happens because it's funded by property taxes for to a large extent. So where you live really matters. So we have a large transient population, people who are moving in and out of these short-term housing areas to try and access this schools, but also because they need places to live.
Mm-hmm.
I love that it adds to the beautiful tapestry of the student body that we have, right? It does present a problem for educators because when you have students that are coming in, like we have students sort of rolling in and out all year long,
Yeah.
that puts a real strain on the educators, right? Because now they're having to, just in the same way, like if you're somebody who owns a business, when you have a new client come aboard, there's an onboarding process that happens, right? It takes time to get someone up to the system to
Yeah.
understand how things work here and what needs do you have and how do I help you and get you acquainted and into our system. That process takes time. So obviously it takes extra resources to do that work so that you can help those students, and then that can cost other students. How our schools are funded is just, let me also say, our district, its third one of its, like, I think number 3 on its list of core values that it just passed around the same time of COVID is equity, right? Specifically, they use the word equity, not equality, equity. Funding happens equally. So all of the elementary students, all the elementary schools are getting funded in an equal way, right? Like a per pupil idea of like, here's how much money you get. And it doesn't take into account anything else about the needs of that particular building and how those may vary from school to school. That is equality. That is not equity. Our school has some really unique needs, partially because of this transient, I hate that word, but because of, and that's the word that they're using, but because of our changing, our evolving student
Mm-hmm.
base and the type of housing that we have in our area, we have a greater need. Because also many of those students, and it's not just them, it's also our other students, but we have a large number of students who need interventions. They need extra help, right? They're behind, they have additional needs that they are supposed to be, by government laws, receiving interventions for, right? If anyone knows anything about an IEP, and there's other things as well, but the government requires student needs to be met, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we got something that was, the idea of inclusion when we got rid of, as many of us may remember from our youth, we had separate, like the kids who had special needs, they had their own spaces, right? And then
Yeah.
the average learners were in the normal classrooms, at the regular classrooms, and then the special, like the advanced students went into their spaces. Like we were all very separated back in our childhood. And then inclusion came along and it said, let's integrate these classrooms so that all the students are experiencing everyone no matter where they're at. I think that's a lovely thing, right? It means that my son, we just had parent teacher conferences last night. I was told that my son, there was a student who's very differently abled. One of the kindergartners came to their class and said, why do you look like that? And my son immediately came over and was like, that's his superpower. That's what makes him awesome, whatever, right? He wouldn't have that in the old days, right? He wouldn't have that exposure. I love
Yeah.
it. However, when we bring students with different varying degrees of needs and abilities into the same classroom, that brings with it more challenges.
Yeah.
One teacher trying to manage 20 to 30 kids who are
With
all at
different
very different
needs. Yeah.
paces, right, is challenging. So some of these students have additional teachers who come in to help them. Many of them have requirements that aren't being met in our building because we have such a high level of need. When you have students who are constantly moving, they're going to fall behind. That is
Yeah.
not to say there's anything inherently wrong with the child. It's because they're constantly moving. It's very hard to
Yeah.
stay at level when you are always in that place of, I'm just trying to get acquainted and then I'm moving into a new, right?
Yeah.
So
So what's
all of
happening
this.
tonight?
So we're having a school board meeting. We have a group of parents. I'm just trying to lay the land for you because some parents approached me and said, hey, we're getting together. We know that you are sort of politically aligned with us. Would you want to come to a meeting? I'm like, I don't know what this is about, but okay, it's about equity. I'm into that. It's a group of white women So this is where it gets messy and where I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
And if y'all are listening, I don't know because I try to keep this part of my life separate from like that other part of my life, but people may discover me. Um, I'm excited about what we're doing. I want to be clear about that. However, it is a group of about 10 to 15 white moms
Mm-hmm.
who are coming together to talk about the fact that we are disappointed in the funding, the way things are being funded, right?
Mm-hmm.
That there's this focus on equity, and yet we're looking at what looks like equality, and
Yeah.
it's leaving our student body, not just our school, although primarily our school, but these other schools that feed into the North High School, which is the predominantly Black and lower affluent school in the
Mm-hmm.
district. In fact, one of the more affluent schools apparently came to one of our football games at the high school and shouted poverty the whole time. So that says something
Oh
about
my
what's happening.
God. What the fuck?
Yeah, they chanted poverty. So yeah, that's we're not, by the way, this is not that there's anything that shouldn't happen anywhere, but we actually don't live in a like poor area. It's just
Yeah.
not like the west side of our district that's very wealthy. Okay. So we're getting together, we're having these conversations and talking about going to the board to say we want to see things be funded more equitably because our students are falling behind. And what that means is because of all of these issues I've discussed, we have teachers leaving. We have a very high turnover rate, way higher than any of the other schools around us for turnover because our teachers are getting burned out. They are being asked to
Mm-hmm.
do too much with too little. And we don't have enough space and we don't have enough funding, both of
Mm-hmm.
those things. So I'm going to quickly read what I'm going to say tonight. What I plan to say tonight, and I would love your feedback because I think all of what I just said, right? All right, so thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a proud parent of this school. I'm not going to give school names. I'm not here tonight to complain about our student population. In fact, we chose this school for the reason that our child would be in a truly diverse area, a rare thing in St. Louis. I love our student body exactly as it is, and that our principal is an unwavering advocate for diversity and inclusion. My concern is what appears to be an unfair allocation of resources in the north side of our school district as a whole and at this school in particular. We have about 10% more students than expected this year, again, because of the population changes that are happening. And we simply don't have enough building space to meet the needs. Also, I understand that we have students who need specialist interventions who aren't having those needs adequately met due to a lack of resources. Those challenges burden already overburdened educators, which may be part of the reason our school is losing so many teachers and counselors to other schools within the district. I don't want to see our talented teachers leave. This is a big concern because the sad reality is, and here's where I'm interested to hear more, Tanya,
Mm-hmm.
about what you think. The sad reality is that parents with greater means are talking about leaving the north part of the school district or leaving Parkway schools altogether. If the most privileged families leave, I worry our schools will go the way of most other area schools and lose the beautiful diversity that attracted me and so many others to this school. Equity does not mean equality, yet my understanding is that this district allocates resources equally among schools regardless of differences in needs. I urge you to consider how you can do better to live into your core value of equity by ensuring that resources are allocated in a way that those with the greatest needs aren't left behind. That's what I want to say. What I'm clearly saying is, and what the reality is, I'm hearing from more and more white families that they're considering leaving
Hmm.
because there's such a high turnover of teachers and they're worried their kids just aren't getting the quality of education that they could get if they went somewhere else.
Yeah.
That may be true. And yet, if we don't stay, what happens is I worry our school will quickly become like the school my husband teaches at in the north side of this, in the actual North County, 99% Black. I don't worry about the school being 99% Black. I worry about the school not having diversity and
Mm-hmm.
that we are in a rare pocket where that
Mm-hmm.
happens. And if we aren't careful, we're going to lose that. So, all of this, now you've got the scene. What do you think about what I have to say? Like what I plan to say? And what are your thoughts about the fact that we are a group of white women coming together to have this conversation? I cede the floor to you. It feels messy. The whole thing does feel really messy to me,
Yeah.
and yet feels important.
Yeah. So let me make sure I'm tracking before I give my opinion because I want to
Please.
make sure I'm understanding correctly. So this group of moms, they're going to the meeting tonight to address funding or address lack of, or address, what am I trying to ask?
Primarily funding, right? It's
Okay.
about our school, we need more space, or
Yeah.
and this is part of what we talked about. How do we show up to make it clear that we're not saying we want, because some of it could be redistricting. But that I don't want that. Like,
Yeah.
that may end up being a necessary reality, but my fear is when we talk redistricting, we know it happens, and that doesn't always happen in a fair way, right? It just
Hmm.
looks like, well, then let's cut off all these kids that are in the hotels and make another school deal with them. That's not what we want, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to, and that's why I'm trying to be clear. I'm not upset about the student population, and yet our kids are not getting what they need. So how do we
Hmm.
figure that out in a way that is fair? And I don't know what that looks like, but
Yeah.
so
I think where I'm at with like the moms is there's a difference in intention when you say something like, if this funding issue isn't addressed, I'm pulling my kid out, versus we need this funding issue addressed so I can keep my kid in.
yeah,
Right? Like that those feel different, right? Like one feels
agreed.
like an ultimatum and one feels more like almost collaborative. Like, what are we going to do about this, right? And so my concern is from a racial perspective. Like, I don't know the what the race makeup is of the majority of your school board, or
Right.
whoever's going to be at this meeting, right? Like, my concern is if it comes across as an ultimatum, that that's not really going to affect any change,
Yeah.
because we know that, like, if a white person says, or we can expect that fairly, I think we can expect that a majority white audience will be like, well, then just take your kids to another better school, because the kids who, we're not as invested in the kids who will be left behind.
Oh,
And so that's my concern. And
yeah.
so I think the approach is very important. And I think also school boards are political, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're
They're
elected.
they're
And that yeah,
political.
yeah, they're strictly political, and it's also all the other ways everything's political.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think, speaking from like a purely strategic point of view, like, I'm not sure that I would bring up how there's a difference between equality and equity. I don't think that argument is going to matter to them. I
Okay.
think what's going to matter is um, what that means, right? Like how that's practiced, like what's actually done versus what you call it. And so, and not that the difference between equality and equity doesn't matter. It does matter. Language matters, right? Because words mean things. You can't just change the meanings of words willy nilly, right? But when you're in a political situation, especially given just like the national climate, like those words can immediately be put off. Like they can immediately put somebody off. And
Mm.
so, and when that happens, like they're not going to hear whatever else you have to say. And so I would just, again, the words that you use, like the way that you choose to frame this, I think is going to be really important. And this is my own strategic political maneuvering mind, right? Um, and I think then once some change can be implemented, or once people are open to the conversation about, well, how actually are we distributing funds, not in a way that's equal, but in a way that's meeting the needs of each independent school. Once that conversation is happening, then you can bring up, oh, this is actually what equity looks like. I think before what we were doing was equality, but this is actually equity. Because
Well,
then,
it's so interesting because we talked about, and you're hitting on some of the things we've talked about, because we were like, I was one of the people, one of the voices in the room saying, I don't think we should be focusing on the student population, like hitting on this idea of the transient population and stuff, and or even really the racial makeup. Although I want to talk about the fact that we love the diversity, because I don't want it to look like we're a bunch of white women coming in to complain that like our white kids aren't getting a good education because we have these,
Mm-hmm.
transient kids or these black kids, and that's not
Mm-hmm.
at all the case. And I will say, every person in this room, the reason we want to fight is because of exactly what we said. We don't want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
We want to stay and fight. We don't want to be the people who are just like, well, we can buy another house, so we'll just move. Like, that's the easy way out of
Yeah.
this. And that is not what I want, because anywhere I move, I know I'm going to take my kid, my white male child, from a truly diverse school to a less diverse situation where it will necessarily change his relationship with white supremacy in his life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I don't want to see that happen. And as we've discussed before, I also don't want to be in a school that's not diverse the other way. I don't want to be in a school
Yeah.
that's not diverse either way. I don't want him to be the minority. I don't want him to be the majority. I want it to be exactly like it is right now, right? There is no majority population there's no 51% plus of any racial makeup in my kid's school. And I love that. So it is hard. It's like, how do we talk about these things in a way that makes it clear? And the other thing I brought up in the room was we have to be really careful too when we start talking about funding, because every other part of the district, when we start saying we don't want money divvied out equally, we want it divvied out equitably, what other parents will hear, whether we want them to or not, is
Is
you
that you're
mean
taking
my
away?
kid. Because I said that famous quote of, to people with oppression or to people with privilege, equality looks like, or equity looks like,
Right.
oppression. And
Yeah.
they're going to think, well, you're taking away from my kid. That's not fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, how do we present fairness, which is one of the words we were talking about using. Can we focus more on what's fair versus equity and equality, since those words may be a little more charged.
Mm-hmm.
But this is
Yeah.
messy. You see how messy it is? I was
Yeah,
very
it
excited
is
to talk about
messy.
it.
It is messy. I've heard people use the example to illustrate like the difference between what's fair, and the difference or not the difference between what's fair, but the difference between equality and equity, and how to institute fairness. I've seen people use an example of like people who have multiple kids, right? Each child has different needs. And so as a parent, like you're not going to give the same attention to a 16-year-old child that you would to a 6-year-old child, right? You're not going to treat them the
Exhausted.
same. You're not going to have the same
Yeah.
boundaries, right? Like it's going to be a different approach. And so mapping that onto these different schools, right? Like these different schools have these different needs, right? And those needs are made up of the students that go to those schools, right? The teachers that go to the schools, the administrators that are at those schools, the communities that those schools are a part of. And so focusing on like what that need is, I think, regardless of what the makeup is, because at the end of the day, some parents are going to leave. Like I think you just need to be prepared for that. Like some
Oh, it's
parents are going
happening
to pull their
already. So
kids,
yeah.
right? Like those diversity statistics numbers are going to keep fluctuating, sometimes wildly, sometimes not as wildly. And you might find yourself in a situation where your son is the minority, right? Depending on how many parents decide to pull their kids out. But that doesn't change the fact that the school's needs are going to be different than
Hmm.
another school's needs, right? That fact is going to remain regardless of the makeup, regardless of how
Yeah.
diverse the school is. There are still going to be specific needs that that school has that other schools don't have, and vice versa. And so I think keeping the conversation based around that is your path of least resistance
Yeah.
to
It's so
get what
challenging because
students need.
talking about race, and even when it's not about race, it is. And like, it's just challenging because I'm afraid people will hear, I'm just so nervous about being white women showing up. A lot of the school's teachers are showing up as well because they
Mm-hmm.
want to show solidarity, to say like, we are here, we all care about the school. One of my son's past teachers, reached out to me to ask if I'd be willing to send somebody to the school board, and I was like, I'm going to the meeting. She was really relieved. She's like, I thought you would be the kind of person who would be there. But I'm just worried. I don't want them to see us show up and then think that we are in any way trying to link the diversity of our school as a direct causal reason for
Yeah.
additional needs.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you can't talk about the additional needs without all of the systemic structural issues
Yeah.
that lead to, in the same way, well, people will talk about, oh, well, this area that's predominantly Black has more crime, without talking about any of the reasons that might
That
be
happens.
true,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Lack
That
of
beyond
jobs,
just,
lack of
right.
like proper education. Yeah.
Correct. Without any,
Lack of
like, it just
housing.
direct causation versus correlation. And this is a
Yeah.
correlation situation. And my biggest fear is I don't want to show up and look like I'm being reductive, especially since I have very little time to talk. It's like how to
Yeah.
talk about these nuanced issues in 2 minutes
Yeah.
without sounding
Yeah.
reductive. And
Yeah.
it's
Well,
really
you
challenging.
can't. You can't. Like the way I see it is like
Yeah,
this
you're
is a
right.
layered conversation. The first layer is that the school has unique needs that aren't being met, right?
Yeah.
The additional layers as you go deeper is the racial issues, the class issues, right? Like all those other things that you could talk about until you're blue in the face. But the
Hmm.
immediate issue, the top layer is the needs that the school has. So you can talk
That's,
about that
yeah.
without even addressing the diversity, right? If you want to make sure you don't come across as like either the white savior or creating a conversation that you have no intention of creating.
Yeah, which I brought up about the white saviorism. So based on what I said I was going to say, do you think I should take out? Like, I wanted to make sure that at least one of us in the room was showing up to say very clearly, I'm not here to complain about our student body. I love our. This is why
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the school, and I kind of want them to see a white face saying,
Mm-hmm.
"This is why I love this school." Like, I just
Mm-hmm.
feel like I really want to make sure I get that point apart across. But I don't know. Does that come? Does it fall flat in this, like,
I don't
having
think
such
it
small?
falls flat. I would not. I'm trying to think where in your 2 minutes to put that, like, because it has to be strategic how you bring that up. I would bring that up at the very beginning and don't spend a lot of time on it.
So maybe I just need to take out the part about us losing the diversity, because that is the part that made me nervous. This part about the reality is we may lose people if we don't solve this issue.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I just take that part out. Because I think the first part of what I have to say is great. I
Yeah.
felt like it's like, that I love the diversity. I'm worried about how things are being allocated, and about our students, about us having all these additional students that we weren't prepared for, not having the space, not having the resources. And then that means students are falling through the cracks. Their needs aren't being met. And then that this is causing burdens on our teachers who we love and they're leaving. So maybe I just need to kind of almost end it there and just not even go into the part about potentially losing the other students, and just
Yeah,
like
I
saying,
wouldn't even address that. I would just
yeah.
say our teachers have special like unique needs, our school has unique needs, and those are not being met the way that funding is
Yeah.
currently being distributed.
And the other piece you said that I think is important is, I think maybe I'll take out the last parts I had and change it to something along the lines of, we are eager to work with you to think about how we can solve this issue for all of our schools, right? Something that, so it doesn't sound like the ultimatum piece, right?
Yeah.
Something that sounds more collective in the action. So
Yeah.
thank you. That's been helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll report back. I don't even know yet for sure if I'm speaking. By the way, I think they only have 10 speaking slots, something like that. So I don't know. The moms are deciding who's going to speak. So we'll see if I make the cut. But if I do, I'll report back. I'll report back about how all of this goes.
Okay.
So what's your mess?
I have a couple messes.
Ooh,
Oh, I
which
have more
one?
than a couple messes. I'm not sure which one I want to. I'm not sure how personal I want to get. But you know what? You got really personal, so I'm going to
I
feel a
did. And
little
I
bit
was like, I will
brave.
not lie. It was really scary to bring that up here for a lot of reasons.
I'm going to be really brave, and get personal. So you're bisexual, right?
Yes.
Married to a straight man.
Yes.
Okay, I'm pansexual.
Well, I would say I'm
Married.
pansexual as well. But
Okay,
yes.
married to a lesbian woman. Um,
These things are not revelations. I feel like we've had that
they're not
discussion.
revelations. We know this about each other.
Thus far, all of this is old news.
I guess my question is, okay, so let me preface this by saying I'm a late bloomer when it comes to my queer identity. Like I didn't come out until my early 30s because
Totally
of my
relate.
religious
Yep.
upbringing. And I didn't date before my wife.
Oh, okay.
Like I
Like
just
at all?
at
Or you mean
all.
women?
At all.
Oh, because you were you had this very strong religious background
I
at
had a
home.
very
So
strong
is that
religious
why?
background, but I also just felt like dating was a waste of time. I was like, I got too much shit to do to be with like just lollygagging with people who may or may not work out. Like that, it just seemed like a waste of time to me.
Interesting.
Um, but then when I came out, I was like, well, this is a bit different. I think also even in the religious bubble, like there was also a part of me that was like, men just kind of suck.
Well,
So I'm
that is
not
so true.
interested in dating and being married to a man, right? But I think in my mind, it was like the way that my brain made sense of it because of the religious bubble was partially like I have too much to do and I don't want to waste my time. Although not that that part was a complete lie. I just don't think it was the whole story. But then when I came out in my early 30s, I was like, well, this opens up a whole new possibility, right? So I was like, let me try and date a little bit and see if anyone catches my interest. Let's just have some fun, right? Because when I met my wife, we met online on OkCupid,
Oh,
and we had been stalking each other's profiles for months before anyone reached out. And it wasn't until she changed her profile and said, I'm moving back to LA, that I was like, perfect. No strings attached. It'll be just a few weeks of fun, just hanging out, and she'll go back to LA and I'll
oh,
never
you
have
don't
to
know
see
how
her again.
lesbians are. That's so sweet.
I didn't know much about lesbian culture. So this was like
You
six
didn't know there
weeks.
was gonna be U-Haul outside your
No,
door.
no. This was about 6 weeks before she moved back, and she was actually moving out of her apartment 2 weeks into that. I will say her apartment was also really close to where I was going to school and where I was working at the time. So in between classes, I would be like, hey, can I come take a nap? Or like between classes and work at the restaurant, I'd be like, oh, I have like a few hours. Can I just come hang out, take a nap? And that's not a euphemism. Like I literally would take naps. Um, and so like those 2 weeks, we got really close. And then she moved out of her apartment, and you know how wild my wife is.
Mhm.
I was like, so where are you gonna stay after you move out of your apartment? She was like, oh, I don't know yet. And I was just like, what do you mean you don't know? And it's literally like 2 days before she has to move out. And I'm just like, what the hell are you doing? I was like, you can just stay with me and my roommate, like whatever. So she moved into our house for like 3 or 4
Uh-huh.
weeks. To be fair, she was traveling for some of that time. So she wasn't there the whole time. But then a bunch of other shit happened, and call it trauma bonding, call it U-hauling, whatever you want. When it was time for her to move back to LA, I was like, oh, I'm kind of sad. I kind of don't want to not talk to her anymore. So took her to the airport, asked her to be my girlfriend. We did long distance for a year while I was finishing up my bachelor's. And then once I was done, I moved to LA because she was in grad school. So it wasn't like she could move back to Atlanta. So that was 11 years ago, a little over 11 years ago. First person that I dated,
Ended up
seriously or
marrying.
unseriously, huh?
Ended up marrying.
Ended up marrying. Didn't want to get married either. Even when I moved to LA, I was like, oh no, there's no fucking way I'm getting married. But then it was like, I need benefits. She has benefits. I don't have a job yet. We need to have like some kind of legal arrangement. So we had a partnership in California. And then after that, it was like, well, why don't we just get married? Anyway, I'm getting to my point here. Um, my lack of experience in dating, like, I think sometimes there's a part of me that feels like I missed out on some of that.
Really?
That's what everybody says.
Well,
And I'm
listen,
not saying,
my first marriage was somebody that I met when I was 17, got married at 24, never dated. I mean, I had very minimal dating experience. Got
yeah.
married 11 years. Very interesting. I started to get the itch. I guess I got the itch around 10 years, but I started having all of this like I never dated. I never saw what else there is. Like, and
Yeah.
it wasn't even that I didn't, it was just more like I just felt like I missed out on something. So I
Mm,
fully relate to this.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm all on
Um,
board right now.
yeah. And I'm not saying I necessarily want to date other people.
Got it.
I'm giving you my thought process here because also because I'm 43 now. I came out when I was like 31, 32. So it's been a little over 10 years since I like came to terms with my queer identity. And she's always been like staunch lesbian. Like she's never been like bi lesbian or lesbian pan or you know like what I mean. Like sometimes like people evolve like that. Like she's never been like that. And so I still have like I still am attracted to like the opposite sex, and it's a little bit of like a joke sometimes with us because she's like something will like we'll be watching a show, whether it's true crime or fake TV, right? Like some TV show or movie, and she'll just look at me and she's like, I know you like men, but God, they're disgusting, you know. Like I don't know how you can like them, you know. So it's a little bit of a joke, but I do find myself sometimes just like being like super attracted to like so like obviously men that are untouchable, like my Jeff Goldblum obsession.
Yeah.
Like like there's no way that could ever be threatening to my relationship, right? But I think it's hard also because I think like she's my best friend. Like she's the one person I would want to talk to about any kind of like attraction or oh my gosh, did you see that guy at the grocery store or whatever? But then like it's hard for me to figure out where the line is, right? Because I don't want to like make her feel a certain way, but I
Just
can
on the
get quite
discussing it.
feral. Huh?
Just on the like discussing this is somebody I find attractive, or oh look at that, isn't that person cute, or oh that person
Yeah.
makes me swoon, like that kind of a conversation, or are you saying I'm not sure if we need to have conversations more like is polyamory an
No,
avenue
no,
for us?
no. Just
Like okay,
like the way I would talk to like one of my other besties, right? It'd just be like, oh my
well
God, I
let's
saw this guy.
I'm
Or I
in
was at
a
this event and I ended up
right.
sitting next to this dude and like, it's nothing like opening up our relationship or polyamory or anything like that. But it's like,
It's just girlfriend talk about like
yeah,
that
yeah,
person's
because
hot.
she's my best friend.
I am in a hetero presenting relationship and I would not and do not talk to my husband other than in the same way
Obscure.
like me just like oh my hall pass or like he knows
Hmm.
I think Paul Rudd's like dreamy or whatever and like he'll send me things about Paul Rudd every once in a while so like we there's a couple of those like celebrity people that
Yeah,
in that same way like that unattainable it's a joke like we know but we kind of know each other's types sort of a thing
yeah.
that we do and I will do the same to him about Eva Mendes. Okay, fine.
Hmm.
But we don't have, I would never and will never and don't want him to ever see somebody in public and be like, oh my God, she's hot. That, no, doesn't feel good
Really?
to me. No, doesn't feel good to me. And I wouldn't do that to him because I don't want him
Hmm.
to, it's different when it's a celebrity. Again, like you said, it's never going to happen.
Yeah,
It's not real. It's just like, it's more discussing archetypes of like kinds of people we find attractive
yeah.
versus like here is a person in front of us who is a real human. Like those people are real humans, but like there's no accessibility, there's no reality to it. This is like, no, here's a real person that I'm now finding attractive that in a different world I might be able to act on it. Like if we weren't like
Hmm.
that, me for my boundaries, it crosses a line that becomes uncomfortable and doesn't feel good. Like I'm
Mm.
okay with the here and for some people that is not a boundary that doesn't
Yeah.
feel good. They do that all the time with their partners. In our relationship, that is a pretty established no, we don't do that.
Okay.
However, if I was out with my girlfriend or even a guy friend, like probably a gay guy friend. But if I was out with a friend and I saw someone, I'd be like, damn, that person's fine. Like, oh,
Yeah.
aren't they hot? Like, knowing that I would still never act on it, right? Like, it's not something I'm pursuing, but just being like, holy shit, look how hot they are. I don't know. It's like a respect thing that I don't want to make him feel uncomfortable. I don't want him
Hmm.
to get into a comparison mode because I know that's where my brain would go. If we were out in
Okay.
public and there was some woman, he was like, she is fucking gorgeous. I would be like, comparing myself and seeing all the ways that I don't compare and
Yeah.
feel, so is that what you are saying you would really rather, who you'd really rather be with right
Hmm.
now? Even when I know it's probably not realistic. Like, I love my husband, but both of us have aged. Both of us look different than we used to. Like, I know he's not going to be out there pulling and, Angelina Jolie or whoever, like, as
Yeah.
much as I love him. But also, it's different for men and women too, like in
Mm-hmm.
what's realistic and not realistic with aging. But
Yeah.
anyway, I don't know. For me, it's uncomfortable. I would have those conversations with a friend. But I think it's like some of it is what have you guys established inside of your relationship? Like when you're
Yeah.
watching TV, do you guys talk about celebrity crushes?
We do talk about celebrity crushes. We have some of the same people on our hall pass list, so we're like, oh, we could just have
Ooh,
a threesome. It'll be great.
there you go.
But of course, that's all like fantasy, right? And so
Exactly.
I think I think part of it for me is like I get the whole thing, like because I definitely don't ever want to make her feel like she has to compare herself to someone else.
Right.
Um, I think sometimes I forget that like because we're so alike that I forget
Mm.
in some ways we're different. Because for me, like if she were to be like, oh, I
I
went
wouldn't.
to this work thing and like I met this woman and she was like fucking hot. I was just like, oh, really? Tell me about it. Did you get any pictures? You know, like
Uh,
it wouldn't bother me. Like I'm so, I don't know.
well,
Um,
and in some ways, I can tell your wife and I are similar. I don't know if we're similar in all the ways, but like
yeah.
I would be bothered by that. So I don't know. But I think that's where you need to have the like, I don't know, it can be helpful to have those conversations. Although my husband and I have never outright like just blatantly had that
Yeah.
conversation. It's
Yeah.
been more of a like over the course of the last, whatever, 10, 12 years
Hmm.
of kind of testing the like
The
it feels like
boundaries.
operation, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like, if I touch this part, does it make you go, and like I start
Hmm.
to notice where his like and
Yeah.
he and I are very, very similar. We're both Pisces. We're very emotional. We're very sensitive. We're both a little
Yeah.
romantic. Like we're just both people who, for either of us, we both get the like, "Ugh, don't say
Yeah.
that. Like I don't. It's too real, and it makes me feel like less loved, even if
Yeah.
that's not what it means, and
Yeah.
even if we both, because I think we both feel the same way where I know
Hmm.
he sees women and he thinks they're hot. I
Yeah.
see his head. He's not the best. Men are really bad. Here's a difference between men and women that I can tell you. Men are really bad at hiding their eyes. Like I see he can't just look. Like I can just look and then be like, I didn't see anything. He's like, huh? What? I
Ogling.
didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I know he sees women he thinks they're beautiful and they
Yeah.
are beautiful and I see that. But I guess I don't know. There's something where I don't need to hear about it. I don't need
Yeah.
to if you start to talk about it, I'm going to start to fixate on it and it's going to become unhealthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, there's many people who I think are far more, I don't know if it's sensitivity
Hmm.
or if it's self-esteem related. It very well could
Hmm.
be because I think he and I both probably have some issues there. I'm not sure
Hmm.
if it's people with a healthier self-esteem or if they're
Hmm.
less sensitive. For some people, I think they have those kinds of conversations all the time and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think it has anything to do with heteronormativity or anything either. I think that
I don't
is
think so either.
highly individualized. Some people
Yeah.
are great
Yeah.
with that, some
Yeah.
people are not. Because I've met men and women both who are wired totally different than me. And
Yeah.
I couldn't be in a relationship with someone like that because I would be constantly in my feelings.
Yeah. 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 I don't think it's a heteronormative thing either. I think like part of my dilemma is also like we don't have a lot of friends here in Baltimore.
It's tough.
So it's not like I'm meeting up with people that
Mhm.
I would talk to about this like every other day or a few times a week. You know what I mean? So I think it's like we have some really good friends, but that's so recent. It's just been like the past year that for like the longest it was just us two. So it was like we talked about
Yeah.
everything. So now it's like my brain is like having trouble like making the transition to be like, oh, you can talk to other people.
I
Like,
totally get that. Like my partner is my best friend too, and I think that's what happens in a marriage, or I feel like in a healthy marriage, your
hmm,
partner does become your primary go-to person to talk
yeah,
about most things, and that can be hard because in an unhealthy space, and mine's probably that way because I'm such a deep introvert that I don't have a lot of friends either. Like that I would go that I especially like in person kinds of
hmm,
friends. So yeah, that is challenging because it's like, who do you talk to about the things that you don't want to talk to your partner about? And not because you don't trust them
not
or
for
love them, but really more
secrets.
out of respect for
Yeah,
them. Like
yeah,
this is just
yeah.
not something that's really appropriate for our space. Because I don't I fully expect that if my husband is out with his guy friends at the bar, I
They're looking
expect
at
that there's
people.
And then top being like, damn, she's hot. Like, okay, cool. Like, I expect
Yeah.
that. Don't care. I just don't need to know about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I want him to have, that's why I'm always encouraging him to go and have guy time and do stuff. Cause like,
Hmm.
I need him to have that space so that it's not something that need isn't being met, but also that I'm not being asked to fulfill a need I can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I
I
guess
think that's a
part of
good
me,
point.
yeah,
Cause like we've had that conversation before of like, I don't believe anyway that one person can meet all your needs, right?
they shouldn't. I don't think that's
I
healthy
don't think that's
personally,
healthy,
other than maybe
right?
yourself. And even then,
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
that
other
that's
than
healthy.
yourself, yeah. But I think in terms of like emotional needs, for sure, like
Mhm.
not like that's too much of a burden, I feel like, on one person. And
For
so,
sure. I've seen parents who do it to their children, and we know that's unhealthy. So why isn't it
yeah,
unhealthy in a relationship with a partner?
yeah, yeah. So I think that's I hadn't considered it from that perspective. I think that's a good point. Like it's a lot to put on her.
Yeah. You're asking her to
Um,
wade through stuff that maybe she's not, you know, it'd be one thing if you guys, again, you tested those edges and your edges had gotten
mhm,
out to the place where you're like, she does it, I do, we both are
mhm,
okay. But if it's like, we've tested those edges and we've kind of come to this place and this is falling
mhm.
outside of that, then yeah,
Yeah,
that probably means it's a place for someone else. I mean, it's also, I happen to know she listens to this podcast.
it does.
So she will probably ask you about this if you guys don't talk about it beforehand. And I would say to her, like, it's totally healthy in the same way she probably has thoughts too. Like,
Yeah.
it's good to have a space to have those conversations, knowing I think the big thing is, do you have enough respect inside your relationship? And I think you do. That if it ever became something more than just like the like banter, locker room talk, for lack of like just like healthy banter. If it ever became
Yeah.
like, I'm now getting fixated on a person
Yeah.
who's a real person and there's access or there's opportunity, that becomes something different where you need to be
Yeah,
having
you have to
conversations
talk about
about it.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And as long as
Yeah.
you guys have the respect to know that like we would talk about that kind of thing,
Yeah.
then like I think it's healthy. It's so silly to think that you get married and suddenly what your like hormones
Everything
just,
shuts off.
or it only go like it all gets
Yeah.
towards this one person. And while yeah, we need to have it towards this one person,
Hmm.
we're still humans who when you were
Gonna be
out,
attracted to other people.
yeah, you weren't dating much, but for many of us, when you're out dating, you're attracted to lots of people. It's
Yeah.
like a buffet, and it's like, why am I only gonna eat the
That
green
sounds
beans when
gross. I
there's,
hate buffets.
I know, but why would I eat just green beans when there's also cheesecake? You want to have both, right?
Yeah.
And just because you decided you're going to spend your life with the green beans doesn't mean that sometimes you don't want to like take a
Look at
little
the
whiff of the
cheesecake.
cheesecake and like just drool over the cheesecake a
Damn,
little
that
bit.
cheesecake looks good.
Right? I'm not going to eat it, but damn, it is nice looking cheesecake. I remember cheesecake, right? Like I think that's
I
okay.
remember cheesecake.
Or maybe you married cheesecake and less often you're like, I don't love green beans a lot, but like sometimes I
But
wouldn't
every once
mind.
in a while, a
Yeah,
good
I
green
kind of
bean
miss green beans.
casserole hits the spot.
That's okay. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That was helpful.
Well, good. All right. Well, this was a weird show, but I kind of like, I don't know. We'll see. I wish people would tell us if they like this approach. It's only our second time doing it, so we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll
I
see.
kind of like it. And
We'll
it
see
is
what the
helpful.
numbers say.
Yeah. It's like messy therapy.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we have a guest next week?
I don't
Remind
think
me.
so. I don't freaking
Okay.
know. Like you're asking questions I can't keep up with. But I think we're maybe done with the guests that we have lined up for now
For the year.
until we
Yeah.
get our special series scheduled out. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. And we'll be back maybe with updates because we know your wife's going to hear this and have something to say. And the school board meeting's happening tonight, whether I speak
Yes.
or not. So we will be back with some
Yeah.
updates next week. Maybe we'll have to do
Yeah.
updates and then new messes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Or these may cause entirely new messes in our lives.
Yeah. Maybe we've unleashed the Kraken.
Right. All right. We'll see you next